In 1976, the city of Tangshan in northeastern China was one of the most important industrial cities in the entire country. A proud working-class city of 1 million people built on coal mining and heavy industry. Under the communist government of Mao Zedong, Tangshan was considered a model city, a symbol of Chinese industrial strength and revolutionary spirit. Its workers were celebrated. Its factories ran day and night. Its people lived simple but stable lives in rows of identical apartment blocks that stretched across the flat North China Plain. They were ordinary people, miners and factory workers and teachers and children, living ordinary lives. On the night of July 27, 1976, most of them went to bed early. They had work in the morning. They had no idea it would be the last night of sleep many of them would ever know. By 3 a.m. on July 28, 1976, the city of Tangshan was completely silent. 1 million people sleeping peacefully in their homes, children dreaming in their beds, parents resting after long shifts at the mines and factories. The summer night was warm and still. There was no warning, no alarm, no indication whatsoever that anything was wrong. Seismologists had detected no unusual activity in the region. The Chinese government had issued no warnings. Scientists had made no predictions. In the minutes before the earthquake struck, Tangshan was just another quiet city in the middle of an ordinary summer night. And then at 3:53 in the morning, the ground moved. What happened next was beyond anything the human mind can easily comprehend. In the space of just 23 seconds, the entire city of Tangshan was essentially wiped from the face of the earth. The earthquake measured 7.8 on the Richter scale, one of the most powerful earthquakes ever recorded in human history. It struck directly beneath the city. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Entire apartment blocks that had been standing seconds before simply collapsed into rubble. Buildings that housed hundreds of families pancaked floor by floor in an instant. Roads cracked open. Bridges collapsed. The mines flooded. Fires broke out across the city. And then just 16 hours later, a second massive earthquake struck, measuring 7.1 on the Richter scale, destroying what little had survived the first. Those who survived the initial earthquake woke to a world that no longer existed. People who had gone to sleep in their beds found themselves buried under meters of concrete rubble. Some clawed their way out with their bare hands. Others were pulled free by neighbors who were themselves injured and bleeding. The lucky ones emerged into streets that were completely unrecognizable. The buildings they had lived in their entire lives were gone, replaced by mountains of gray rubble stretching in every direction as far as the eye could see. People wandered in shock, calling out the names of family members, digging desperately through debris with their hands, screaming into the dust-filled darkness. And underneath the rubble, hundreds of thousands of people were still alive, waiting, hopping, running out of time. The rescue effort that followed was unlike anything China had ever attempted. The Chinese military mobilized rapidly, sending tens of thousands of soldiers into the devastated city. But the scale of the destruction was so overwhelming that even this massive response felt completely inadequate. There were no specialized rescue tools, no trained urban search and rescue teams. Soldiers dug through rubble with their bare hands and basic shovels. Medical supplies were desperately insufficient. Hospitals had been destroyed. Doctors and nurses worked in the open air, surrounded by rubble, treating thousands of critically injured survivors with whatever supplies they could find. Every hour that passed meant more people trapped in the rubble died from their injuries, from dehydration, from the summer heat. The race against time was brutal and relentless. When the sun rose over Tangshan on the morning of July 28, 1976, it illuminated a scene of almost incomprehensible destruction. 93% of all residential buildings in the city had been completely destroyed. 78% of industrial buildings had collapsed. The roads were impassable. The railway lines were twisted and broken. The water supply had failed completely. The power grid was gone. Communications were cut off. Of the approximately 1 million people living in Tangshan, an estimated 656,000 had been injured. And the death toll. The death toll was something the Chinese government would spend years trying to hide from the rest of the world. In 1976, China was in the final months of Mao Zedong's rule. The country was in the grip of the Cultural Revolution, a period of extreme political control and paranoia. And when the Tangshan earthquake struck, the Chinese government made a decision that would be condemned by historians for decades to come. They refused all offers of international aid. They closed the region to foreign journalists. They banned outside observers from entering the disaster zone. They suppressed information about the true scale of the catastrophe. The official death toll they eventually released was 242,000 people. But independent researchers and Chinese historians who gained access to the records after Mao's death believe the true figure was significantly higher. Some estimates put the real death toll at as many as 600,000 people, making it potentially the deadliest earthquake in recorded human history. Despite refusing international help, the Chinese government did mobilize an enormous domestic relief effort. Over 100,000 soldiers were eventually deployed to Tangshan. Field hospitals were established in the ruins. Food and water were distributed to survivors living in makeshift camps among the rubble. The sheer scale of the Chinese military response was remarkable given the limitations of the era. But the refusal to accept international assistance almost certainly cost lives. Teams of specialists from other countries with experience in earthquake rescue and recovery stood ready to help. They had equipment and expertise that could have saved thousands of additional lives. But pride and political ideology stood between those offers of help and the people dying in the rubble of Tangshan. The true human cost of the Tangshan earthquake may never be fully known. The Chinese government's suppression of information in the immediate aftermath of the disaster destroyed records and prevented accurate accounting of the dead. Mass graves were dug across the region as bodies were buried quickly in the summer heat. Entire families were wiped out, leaving no one to report them missing. Entire neighborhoods ceased to exist, leaving no witnesses to account for their populations. The official figure of 242,000 deaths already makes Tangshan one of the deadliest natural disasters of the 20th century. But many researchers believe the true figure of up to 600,000 deaths would make it the single deadliest earthquake in all of human history, a truth that was buried along with the victims. Today, the city of Tangshan stands as one of the most remarkable stories of rebuilding and renewal in modern history. Within 10 years of the earthquake, a completely new city had been built on the ruins of the old one. Modern buildings, wide boulevards, parks, and memorials. The Chinese people's capacity for resilience and rebuilding in the face of unimaginable tragedy is genuinely awe-inspiring. A memorial park now stands at the earthquake's epicenter. The names of the confirmed dead are carved into black granite walls. Visitors come from across China to pay their respects, to remember, to honor the lives of the ordinary men, women, and children who went to sleep on an ordinary summer night in 1976 and never woke up. They deserved better. They deserved the truth, and they deserved to be remembered. The Tangshan earthquake of 1976 killed hundreds of thousands of people in 23 seconds. It destroyed an entire city in less than a minute, and the government that was supposed to protect its people chose secrecy and pride over saving lives. The true death toll was hidden for decades. The survivors were denied international help that could have saved thousands more. But the people of Tangshan rebuilt. They always rebuild. If this story moved you, please subscribe to Echoes of the Dead, because every single week we uncover the stories that governments tried to bury. The forgotten, the hidden, the erased, because every single life lost in that rubble deserves to be remembered, and this channel will never let the world forget them.